When love speaks louder than silence. A fictional story of how love saved Wang Yibo and ZHAN from the loneliness they didn't even realize they carried. In a world where lights flash and voices cheer, fame can feel like a blinding cage. Wang Yibo and ZHAN were both soaring, two stars burning bright across screens and stages, adored by millions. Yet behind the glamour, they lived in opposite kinds of silence. Wang Yibo, the mysterious flame always quiet, often unreadable, built walls with his eyes and fences with his words. People loved him for his talent, but few reached the boy who guarded his heart like a secret. ZHAN, the gentle dreamer, all smiles and sunshine on stage, but behind closed doors, he was haunted by the pressure to be perfect, to never falter. He gave warmth, but often forgot to save any for himself. And then, fate did something miraculous. It made them collide. It wasn't love at first sight. They met while filming The Untamed, a story of deep bonds and unspoken love. At first, they were co-workers, nothing more. Yibo was reserved, keeping his earbuds in, riding his skateboard between takes. ZHAN, ever polite, tried to engage him, but their rhythm was off. Until one night, filming ran late, and they were left alone under a single spotlight on set. ZHAN sat beside him on a stone bench, sipping water. The silence stretched between them. "You know," ZHAN said lightly, "you act like you're always fine. But I think you get lonely too." Yibo didn't look at him. "Everyone gets lonely." "True. But not everyone hides it like you." A beat of silence. Yibo turned to face him, eyes shadowed. "What about you? You're always smiling. Is that real?" ZHAN paused. Then, he whispered, "It has to be. Or I'd disappear." And just like that, the wall cracked. Filming wrapped months later. But something lingered. Wang Yibo started texting first. ZHAN began calling late at night, just to talk about the sky, or music, or the way fame felt like living underwater. They became each other's sanctuary in a world that demanded too much. No cameras. No fans. No schedules. Just two boys laughing at bad jokes, sending memes, falling asleep on the phone with quiet breathing as comfort. One day, ZHAN sent a simple message. "I feel more like myself when I'm around you." Yibo replied. "Same. It's strange. But good." That was the first time Yibo realized this wasn't just friendship. He wasn't just less lonely with ZHAN. He was alive. They met in secret, often at a small cabin in the mountains. No stylists. No pressure. Just stolen time. One rainy afternoon, the power went out. They sat in front of the fireplace, wrapped in one blanket, their shoulders touching. Neither spoke for a while. "I was afraid to tell you this," ZHAN murmured. Yibo turned to him. "I think I fell in love with you somewhere between the silence and the laughter." Yibo's chest tightened. His throat burned. "I was afraid too," he whispered. "But I think love found me first. In your voice." ZHAN looked at him. "Do you regret it?" Yibo reached out, touching his hand. "No. You saved me." Without even trying. And that was the first time they kissed, not out of lust or impulse, but the quiet need to feel human. To be loved. Chapter 4, Love as Rebellion. The world never knew. At least not then. They kept it hidden not because they were ashamed, but because the world didn't always allow love to be soft and free between two men under scrutiny. But in that secrecy, their love blossomed. They wrote songs for each other. Secret melodies that never reached the radio. They met in quiet places, temples, old bookstores, abandoned rooftops. They promised to never lie to each other, even if they had to lie to the world. Once, during a chaotic press tour, ZHAN received harsh criticism for something he didn't do. The headlines tore into him. His smile faded. His eyes dimmed. Yibo showed up that night without warning. He didn't speak. He just pulled ZHAN into his arms and held him for what felt like forever. "You're not what they say," he whispered. "You're the only thing in this world that's ever felt right." ZHAN broke. He cried for the first time in front of him. That night, Yibo didn't let go. They weren't perfect. There were days they argued when pressure made them distant, when fear crept in. But they always came back to each other. Because love, they learned, wasn't just holding hands and warm glances. It was staying on the phone during panic attacks, sending food to each other's set after long nights, writing notes and hiding them in coats, holding each other when the world was too loud. Wang Yibo learned to speak more, to let someone in. ZHAN learned to rest, to not always give until he was empty. They didn't just fall in love. They grew in love. And that's what saved them. A year later, ZHAN wrote something in his journal. It was never meant to be read, but Yibo found it one quiet morning while looking for a charger. He doesn't know this, but Yibo saved me. Not with flowers. Not with grand gestures. But by sitting with me when I couldn't sit with myself. He saw the cracks and didn't try to fix them, he just loved me anyway. I hope he never doubts how deeply he healed me. Yibo didn't speak of it. But that night, he held ZHAN closer than ever and whispered in the dark. I saw your soul before you saw mine. And I loved it. I always will. Chapter 7, When the World Caught Up. Eventually, rumors sparked. A blurry photo. A whispered conversation. But neither of them flinched anymore. They didn't confirm. They didn't deny. Because love doesn't need a microphone. It needs presence. One day, during a live fan meet, a fan asked Yibo, "What's the one thing that keeps you grounded?" He smiled faintly, eyes scanning the crowd. Then he said, "Someone I can be silent with. And still feel heard." Across the venue, ZHAN lowered his eyes and smiled. They didn't need to say it out loud. Love had already spoken. Epilogue, a home between two hearts. Years later, after the chaos had quieted, they settled in a small coastal town far from the noise. No paparazzi. No red carpets. Just morning walks, shared books, burnt toast, and sunrises over sleepy coffee. Sometimes, ZHAN painted while Yibo played guitar. Sometimes, they didn't speak for hours, and still felt more connected than ever. Love had saved them. Not by changing who they were, but by revealing who they had always been: tender, vulnerable, and worthy. And one evening, as they sat watching the ocean, ZHAN said softly, "Do you think the world would have loved us if they knew the truth?" Yibo reached over, lacing their fingers together. "Maybe. Maybe not. But we loved each other. And that's more than enough." Final word. This was not a love story born from fairy tales. It was messy, private, healing. It was two broken hearts that didn't try to fix each other, they simply held each other. And in that, they found the one thing that even fame couldn't give them. Peace. Hope. And a home inside someone's arms. The unspoken things. It started with a glance across the set. Not the kind of glance that ignites passion instantly, but the kind that lingers, puzzled and curious, like hearing a melody you've never heard before but somehow remember. Wang Yibo was sitting against the studio wall, sipping water and scrolling his phone, headphones in as usual. ZHAN, standing under a light, rehearsed a quiet monologue to himself. But he kept stealing glances at the boy in the corner who never laughed at anyone's jokes. Yibo wasn't cold. He was careful. And that fascinated ZHAN. He finally walked over, slowly, nonchalantly, holding a cup of warm chrysanthemum tea. "You probably won't drink this," ZHAN said with a sheepish smile, "but it's for calming nerves. I figured you'd need it after that sword scene." Yibo raised one brow. "I don't get nervous." "I do," ZHAN replied. There was a pause. For a second, Yibo didn't know whether to smirk or scoff. But instead, he took the tea. "Thanks." A few nights later, during a break in filming, the crew gathered at a nearby night market. Yibo didn't join. He found a wooden bench behind the studio and sat alone with the moon. ZHAN found him there, surprisingly. "You always sit in the quietest places," he said. "I hate noise," Yibo muttered. "Sometimes," ZHAN replied, "noise makes me feel less alone." Yibo turned to him. "You feel alone?" "All the time," ZHAN said honestly, settling beside him. That simple honesty was disarming. Yibo looked down at his hands, fidgeting with the hem of his sleeve. "No one thinks that about you," he said after a long silence. "That's the point," ZHAN whispered. And in that moment, on a bench, with no camera and no script, they began to understand each other. Not just as co-stars. Not just as public figures. But as two boys, hurting in their own hidden ways. One night after filming an emotionally draining scene, ZHAN didn't go back to his room. He went to Yibo's. Yibo opened the door in sweatpants, hair messy from sleep. What happened? I can't sleep, ZHAN admitted. He didn't say why. He didn't have to. Yibo stepped aside without a word. They didn't talk. They just lay on the bed, side by side, fully clothed, staring at the ceiling. Do you ever feel like everyone loves a version of you that isn't real? ZHAN asked in a voice so small it barely existed. All the time, Yibo replied without hesitation. Their hands brushed in the darkness. Neither moved away. That night, no dreams came to haunt them. Yibo never shared much. He was the mystery everyone wanted to solve but never could. Until ZHAN started noticing the little things. He noticed Yibo stared out the window a little too long when it rained. He noticed he skipped songs with sad lyrics. He noticed he hated being asked about his family. So one night, ZHAN asked something different. What makes you happy, Yibo? The younger man blinked. Why? Because no one ever asks you that. And I want to. Yibo swallowed. I like silence. I like skateboarding with no one watching. I like people who don't try to fix me. ZHAN's smile was gentle. Then I won't try. I'll just be here. The Moonlight Confession. During an overnight shoot in the countryside, the crew took a break at 2 a.m. The hills were quiet. Stars blanketed the sky like a secret only the two of them could see. They stood under a half-dead tree, sharing a thermos of tea and silence. Yibo broke it. I'm scared, he said, voice barely audible. ZHAN turned. Of what? Of feeling too much. Of needing someone. He took a deep breath. You. ZHAN looked at him, truly looked at him, and smiled softly. Me too. The wind brushed past them like a whisper of the future. And then, for the first time, Yibo reached for his hand. No cameras. No scripts. No audience. Just a boy learning how to trust, and another boy promising not to break that trust. It didn't happen with grand declarations. It happened when Yibo waited for ZHAN after long shoots, even when he said I'll be fine. It happened when ZHAN left post-it notes in Yibo's backpack with small reminders. Eat lunch. You were amazing today. You don't have to smile for them. Smile when you want. It happened when Yibo caught him crying after a phone call with his mother, and didn't say don't cry. He just wrapped his arms around him and said, I'm here. When words fell short. They never called it love, not at first. But love was there when ZHAN hummed to Yibo over the phone to help him sleep during anxiety-ridden nights. It was there when Yibo, who hated birthdays, showed up at ZHAN's door with a single cupcake and said, You make life worth marking time. It was there in the way they looked at each other, not like stars, but like survivors of something deep and unseen. Love didn't explode between them. It healed. Final scene, a question without fear. One morning, before their final shooting day, ZHAN watched the sunrise from their hotel balcony. Yibo stepped out, half asleep, eyes squinting. Why are you up? He mumbled. I was thinking, ZHAN said. Dangerous. Maybe, he smiled. Then, quietly, do you think this will fade when the cameras go away? Yibo looked at him. Straight in the eyes. No. Because this didn't start with the cameras. ZHAN turned fully toward him. Then what is this, Yibo? Yibo didn't hesitate this time. It's you and me. Saving each other. Every day. To be continued. Because the truth is, their story didn't begin with love. It began with loneliness. But it grew into love through every soft glance, every human touch,